can assure you that what you will observe is a vast wasteland. Free and uncorrupted communication.
How can we not think of the people we left behind? Yes, this is what Danticat is about. Standing up for social justice, giving voices to those who have been silenced for too long. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. In honor of our guest, permit me to say a few words of greetings in Haitian Creole. M'abdi tout moun la société bonsoir. Moi disons la bienvenue important pour Edwidge Danticat. Nous avons gros maman chapeau pour lui. Nous avons un chapeau tout pour Haïti qui a célébré 200 ans d'indépendance. Yes, today with our guest visiting here, we also honor Haiti. Haiti, the first Black independent republic of this hemisphere, is celebrating its bicentennial of its independence this year. Today we honor Haiti. And Haiti, which has suffered too much, according to the word of anthropologist Karen McCarthy Brown, the Haitian people have endured slavery, hunger, disease, repression, corruption, violence, all in excess. And this is what Danticat writes about. An extremely talented and widely admired Haitian American writer, Edwidge Danticat is our very own shining star and Haiti's most elegant ambassador in the United States and worldwide. Danticat has received more national and international literary prizes and community awards that we could list here. The extraordinary reception of her work is shown in the fact that the work has been translated in over 10 languages, including French, Spanish, German, Japanese, Finnish, Hebrew, and Korean, for example. Her first novel, Breath, Eyes, Memory, recounts the life of a young girl who immigrated to the United States. This book was an Oprah Book Club selection text. In Breath, Eyes, she writes about crossing waters, about memoried past, about remembrance of violence, and of a people regrouping and resisting. The Haiti of Danticat is not the sunny land or those exotic places that we read about in other novels. In Breath, she writes, I come from a place where breath, eyes, and memory are one. A place from which you carry your past like your hair on your head. Her book of short story, Krak, was a National Book Award finalist. The story Children of the Sea, just to name one of them, is such a masterpiece, one where she already shakes hands with the most creative writers of this world. Her genius is revealed there. The story chronicles the journey of 36 people on a small boat bound for the United States, political and economic refugees who end up at the bottom of the ocean. We often hear and read stories about boats sinking and refugees dying. These are faceless individuals. We cannot stay indifferent when Danticat writes, quote, they say behind the mountains are more mountains. Now I know it's true. I also know there are timeless waters, endless seas, and lots of people in this world whose names don't matter to anyone but themselves. Danticat pulls us in. Just like she said in this other piece, how can we not feel for the people we left behind? Farming of Bones, the 1999 American Book Award winner, is another extraordinary, powerful work of historical fiction about the 1937 massacre of 40,000 Haitians on the Haitian-Dominican border. Indeed, Danticat's magic creativeness restores hope even when destruction, violence, corruptions seem to have destroyed everything and everyone. Let's note the many powerful articulation of feminist intervention in her work and the monumental contributions that her work does in giving a voice to the too long silenced Haitian women. We know about the attachés, the macoutes, the zinglindons, who have tortured people for many years now. But with her work, we now feel and know Madame Roger, who, quote, only has the head of her son to bury. The creativity embodied in her novel is found even in popular articles. For example, the piece that she wrote for Essence magazine on the birth of her niece and nephew. The letters that both her father and herself wanted to write, but never could. The life-enhancing commentary I pass on. The introduction of her edited volumes are just such wonderful narratives. The ritual of the first of the year's preparation de soupe jourumou at the family home, for example, or the funeral of a dear friend, a political leader assassinated for his stand on democracy, Jean-Dominique. We showed the agronomist here on February 2nd. All this becomes part of this larger quest for social justice and her never-ending battle to combat exploitation and violence. In addition to her appeal to the general public, Danticat has influenced generations of scholars already. There's been a number of dissertations written on her work. Let me also mention her great generosity and her commitment to her community and grassroots works. The fame does not stop her from collecting books to send to library in Haiti, from teaching teachers and grassroots organizers in the summer. Her friend, the filmmaker Jonathan Demme, wrote, "She has the biggest heart on the planet." Edwidge Danticat is a master of prose. Edwidge's creative genius has touched millions of hearts. Her creativity has no limits. Though she does not write about pretty things, beauty and love exude from her writings. Her prose, her sensibility, her vision have bridged countries and peoples. Professor Chris van der Merwe from the University of Cape Town called it healing by wounding. Or we can also quote Edwidge herself in an interview with Dr. Marlène Racine-Toussaint from Multicultural Women's Press yesterday. "My words are my tears." It is as if Danticat is telling us, as we move forward, we should take others with us, living and gone, ancestors and progeny. She writes, "With each breath we take, we honor those who have passed on, and we stand up for them." Never dogmatic, her writings are always poetically crafted, yet meaningful. She sees like no one else does. The images that she describes are vibrant, pointed, moving, breathtaking. Her characters are surreal in their pain and suffering, yet very much real and part of our lives. In a voice never filled with anger, she leads us to new stages of reflection. Danticat's work provides us with a real opportunity to further extend the larger struggle for social justice. Using the words of the Haitians, I will say to my sister Edwidge, welcome at UC Santa Barbara as a Regents lecturer in the Department of Black Studies. And with my Haitian sisters who are here, Marlène, Nancy, and the new students whom I just met today, we will say in our own tradition, welcome with respect and honor. Welcome, Edwidge.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Claudine, for that wonderful introduction. Moving, thank you. Thank you to the Black Studies, the Chicana Studies, Creative Studies, Women's Studies, English Department, and the Arts and Lectures for having me. And thank you all for coming. I realize that I have great competition tonight, Dave Chappelle. So I understand your dilemma. And I know that some of you are here because of extra credit, but I appreciate it. And it's really an honor to be here as part of the Regents Lecture Program. And it's a personal honor, but also, as Claudine talked about a little bit, it's a great communal honor, one that I feel like I can share with a larger cause, because, as Claudine mentioned, this is an extraordinary year for someone like myself. It's an extraordinary year for Haiti. 2004, which is a bicentennial of Haitian independence. So with this coming here, I feel like I come, like we all who come here from Haiti come here with this to this year. 200 years ago, as Claudine also said, Haitians, slaves and free people, united and fought the greatest army in the world at the time and created this nation. And this year is the bicentennial of this Black Republic, the first successful slave revolt, the second republic in this hemisphere. And in our own community, sort of in the fold, when we say this over and over, people see it as a kind of, as cliche now, but we keep repeating it because it is so important. And especially because during these 200 years, Haiti has seen so much struggle and isolation and has made so many Faustian deals, occupations and dictatorships. But today, even today, as we are here tonight, we're suffering nature's wrath. This complicated combination of environmental depletion and these floods and earthquakes that left 1,000 lives plus. When they say 1,000, it's always more. This past week. So the struggle continues. But also this night, I also want you to think about what else Haiti has produced. And it's a lot. There's also, in the midst of this struggle, a lot of greatness. This is the same country that's given the world people like Toussaint Louverture and people like Alexandre Dumas, author of The Three Musketeers and other books. People like, you might be surprised, John James Audubon, who was born in Lekai, Haiti, one of the most lush regions. People like Jean-Baptiste Point du Sable, who was the founder of Chicago, and Anna Kaona, indigenous queen, who was creator of her own style of pre-Columbian, pre-genocidal pottery. So the example of this 200-year revolution was extraordinary in that it inspired abolitionists the world over and led to the Louisiana Purchase, a big part of this country you owe to Haiti. And it inspired the liberation of the other Americas. There's a story, the beautiful story told of Simon Bolivar going to Jacmel to meet with Alexandre Pétion, who was then president of Haiti. And he stayed in Jacmel for 6 months, and at the end of his stay, Alexandre Pétion gives him all these arms and soldiers to go back and fight. And he says to him, he says, well, what can I do for you? And he says, all you can do for me is that when you get to those places, also and liberate people who are enslaved there. It's the same place also that brought Henri Christophe, who was another president of Haiti, to fight in the Battle of Savannah, Georgia, here in the American Revolution. And it's a country that's hosted Frederick Douglass, who was General Counsel of Haiti for some time. And it's the place where Zora Neale Hurston wrote Their Eyes Were Watching God, and where Langston Hughes translated Jacques Romain, one of our premier novelists. And it inspired words from Aléo Carpentier, who wrote The Kingdom of This World, on the Haitian Revolution, and dances that Catherine Dunham still dances today. And maybe it's a place that one day will host some of you. So tonight, I want to help celebrate this place, the struggle and this triumphs, with a few words, and a place which Frederick Douglass, a century ago actually, when Haiti was celebrating its first 100 years, Frederick Douglass said, though Haiti has only a century behind her, though we are large and Haiti is small, though we are strong and Haiti is weak, though we are a continent and Haiti is bounded on all sides by the sea, there may be a time when even the weakness of Haiti may be the strength of the United States. And this time, perhaps, maybe now. So what I'll do tonight is I'll read you a little bit for a few stories inspired by this place, and then I'll take a few questions, as dialogue is always good. But in terms of framing these things that I'll read, it's funny that Claudine mentioned breath, because I thought if I want to give a title to this talk, I want to call it With Our Very Last Breath. And since I'll start with a piece, an opening, which is a kind of a transitional piece, almost like a prayer. For in the storytelling tradition, you must always transit in a way from this space, the space where we are, to the story space, and that's why we say things like Krik, Krak, honneur, respect, tim tim bois cherche, to go into this other place. So this piece that I'll read first is that place, that transitional piece, and it is called With Our Last Breath. We write our stories in riverine streams and scars, Mecca's hills of dreams, satined herb and silk, slip-wrap unfolding, while our new glass tongues cracks and the shards fly away. Please allow us to gather here among our precious shaft, here on this crumbling mound, where we tell our stories to catch toenails in the dust at our mother's feet, where we tell our stories to pluck salt and pepper dreams from our father's locks, where we tell our stories to color waking dreams with our very last breath. Now, in full gear, the second piece is actually a debt, one of many pieces that I've tried to write over time that are kind of middle pieces that have no category, but like my debt to the oral tradition, the myths and legends that come to life. And this piece, I started writing when I started thinking about this, a legendary horse that I was told about when I was a girl that has 3 legs. It's a horse that's called Galipot. And if you say Galipot, 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 it does sound like the sound of horse hoofs. And when I became much older, when you start being told other kind of stories, I found out from my grandmother that actually when children were told about Galipot, at some point when the Marines came to Haiti in 1915, they had their boots, when the Marines were going through the countryside, and they were often capturing and imprisoning people who were sort of very strong sovereignty people, the Kakos who fought against them. The Marines' boots would sound like Galipot. And these are many ways in which legends come to life, sometimes in the same ways that when you hear the Tonton Macoutes, the original origin of that was a legend of a man who comes in his knapsack and takes you at night, or the Lugaus, these women who have wings of flames, and stories of French generals who would use certain kind of trickery on people, and the zombies, who I always thought in this piece talk about the zombies in terms of Sleeping Beauty, because when I came here and I heard the story of Sleeping Beauty, I thought, she's a zombie. And because in our tradition, if there's a zombie, you give them salt. And I thought, why didn't anybody think to give Sleeping Beauty some salt? And even expressions, the Creole is so full of beautiful expressions, but that are rent with meaning, like Lord Bordelot. If someone is Lord Bordelot, you could have migrated or you could have died. And I know a story of a girl who thought her mother, when she woke up, her mother left, and they hadn't told her that because they thought it would be too sad. And when they said her mother is Lord Bordelot for years, thought her mother had died. So this piece that I'll read now is a piece, a sort of a pondering of a mother who's a factory worker and a sometimes nanny, who is dreaming of some stories that she'd like to tell her daughter, who lives who's still back home in Léogane, where the patron saint is Saint Rose de Lima, who is known for having been so beautiful that she didn't want to offend God with her vanity and peppered her face with hot peppers. Another great legend. So this piece is called Legends. Once, upon an endless night, I dreamed of telling you a story, of pleating you a tale out of my breath and carving it into your flesh with my hair. And since this story would be my last, I wanted it to be a perfect story, not perfect in execution, but perfect only in intent. The stories my mother told were always too frightening for us. She worried, my mother did, that I would remember too much. I worry, I do for you, that you will forget. Nights of women with wings of flames who want to draw you out of your bed and make you into a star. A lovely thing to be a star, but stars, they are too far from us, like New York to Port-au-Prince. Nights of galipot, 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 or three-legged horses riding at full speed to either snatch or rescue children who had lost their way. Lost their way from where, you ask? From their country, I say. And what of the children who had no way to lose? And what of the children who had no country? Then the three-legged horses would not want them, I say. Becomes what comes easy nobody wants. What comes too easy does not make legends. Nobody is ever handed a pot of gold. We must cross forest, jungles, oceans, unearth the tail end of rainbows. We must vine our hair out of window panes and sleep 100 years. And what if the sleeping beauty never awakens with her secret? That, ma chère, we will call death. In our legends, we are beautiful first. A charmed vision comes to claim us. Then we go off to the enchanted land. Then we find out that the vision had only borrowed its face. Still, we are not foolish enough to lie 100 years and wait. Even if they say we are zombies, even if they say we have powders that keep the death beneath the ground until it jolts awake. And what was that girl, that sleeping beauty, if not a zombie? And what was it that gave her her freedom from the sleeping sickness, if not the taste of salt on the prince's lips? Let no one tell you that it was the man's breath itself. Everyone knows, or Mama knows, that it was the salt. It is always the salt that wakes the dead and frightens away the three-legged horses and brings the children home. Once, while peddling at a sewing machine under a fan blowing dust balls into my face in a crowded castle called a sweatshop, I dreamed of telling you a story. Not like the stories my father told of land invasions and foreign masters, of the Makuts and their timid eyes which they hid behind X-ray glasses. In my childhood, the Makuts were legends, breeders of night soil who came in with a knapsack for children who did not do as they were told. In your childhood, the Makuts were soldiers, transformed by the fears of a madman whose own mother must have told him to listen in the night for the machetes scraping the palmetto so he might stay inside. A man who may have watched as the Marines had come to our shore, and as if, St. Rose de Lima, please pray for us, as if the consternations of our nights were not deformed enough. Now there are breeders of night soil to frighten the adults too. Gunboats to replace the knapsacks, bullets to succeed the machetes, and your grandfather who died in a chain gang chiseling a song with his fist. Tande, Tande, we must not sleep another 100 years and wait for them to come and kiss us on our lips. Their kisses are not always gentle. They kiss you with their boots over here. And when you awaken, then what? Kisa, then what? And this is why these stories I dream for you are more yours than mine. One day there might be time for you to ponder these questions from some office castle or some university tower. Do not forget the three-legged horses. Do not forget the night women and their wings. Do not forget the children lost to the night stars. Do not forget those we have left behind. Mothers who, even as they are standing over them, are still carving stories into their daughters' dreams, stories that they might never be able to tell them, that they might be ashamed to tell anyone, stories that one day they will need interpreters for, stories that you will only acknowledge at last when you read them in a book. My mother's favorite story, an ancient one, 100 years ancient, of a French general, once master of a colony, who gave a massive ball for all the colored women of the capital whose men had been called away. It was the first ball that anyone knew of where so many colored women came, curious by the general's sudden interest and their joy. At midnight, the dancing stops and the French general comes, and soldiers dressed in cassocks part a red velvet curtain and chant a mass for the dead. Behind the red velvet curtain are rows and rows of coffins, and the French general names them each one by one to tell the women, "Regarde, you thought you had been dancing the solo minaret when you were really dancing all this time with your dead men." Perhaps we've all been in the coffins with these men and in the silencing dusks with these women, sleeping away 100 years of shame, waiting for the salt. Once, while cradling someone else's child in my arms, standing at a kitchen stove, stirring a soup for the child's hunger, I dreamed of telling you a story that rains with salt. I'm telling you to open your mouth and catch as much of the salt as you can, and the salt sizzles on your tongue, and suddenly you understand why your mother is Lord Bodlo, why she has crossed these waters, but not the truly endless waters, just a tiny sea, and why this is not the first sea, not the only sea that we have ever crossed, and why in the mirror you see her face, and in the night you hear her voice, drowning out the hum of vacant stars, drowning out the gallipot, 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 drowning out the machetes and gunboats, drowning out your tears. And the story she likes to tell you the best is of a mother who every day when she came home from the castle factory would stand outside your bedroom fortress and sing you a simple song. And observing this one day, a devil waited until she was gone and came to your doorstep and tried to imitate that song. At first the voice was too low and you knew and didn't come, but when your mother sang, you came. When the devil came again with a voice that was too high, you knew and did not come, but when the mother sang, you came. Saint Rose de Lima, please pray for us, because now I am frightened. I'm frightened that you will no longer know your mother's voice, and this is why I try to carve these stories into your dreams, so that you will not be deceived by birds and wolves who want to make you and take you into the night. And this is why I try to carve these stories into your dreams, so that not only will you always remember the sound of my voice, but yours as well. Once, at least once each night before I put my head to rest, I dream of telling you a story. I tell you the story, not certain that you will even know how to discern my voice, if you will stay silent or sing it back to me. But I have no choice but to tell you this story. It is all I know. It is all I have. Now I'll read a piece from the Dew Breaker. And the Dew Breaker is my last book. It was published in March, and it's a series of interconnected stories, 9 short stories, all centered around this one man who is what in this book is called the Dew Breaker. He worked in a prison during the dictatorship in the 60s and is now living in New York. And one of the people that he affected in this book, who gets her own story in the book, is a funeral singer. And I often think of this whole, the job of this woman that she describes in the story. She sings at funerals, and she came to this job in sort of a very distressing situation happened, and she became this person who sang at funerals. And the story is set in the Upper West Side, New York City in the 1970s, and there are 3 women who are taking a GED class, Rezia, Maricel, and Freda. And Rezia owns this restaurant, one of the first Haitian restaurants on the Upper West Side. So after the class, they all go back to this restaurant and talk about Haiti and talk about their past and sort of their fear about the life that they have here. And the story is broken up into 14 weeks. It won't take 14 weeks to read it, I promise. So there are 14 vignettes, sort of small sections, as they progressively get acquainted with their lives here. And Jackie Kennedy makes an appearance in the story. The funeral singer. Rezia, the owner of Ambiance Creole, the sole Haitian restaurant on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, recites a long speech from her class manual. 4 scones and 7 tears ago, our fathers blew up this condiment. Odd, but Rezia doesn't have a lips when she speaks English. Everything just gets mixed up in her mouth, like a bird call in a storm. Rezia always carries a white muslin handkerchief, and as it flaps back and forth, it releases more and more of its vetiver fragrance, all the while looking like a kite that she's using to send messages far away. In spite of Rezia's vetiver, the air in the classroom is scorching and it stings. The air conditioner has stopped humming as if to listen to us talk. Maricel, who's shaped like a pencil, even in her heavy French suit, stands up in a perfectly straight line, and in her deep voice that sounds like two people talking, simply states her name. She says it so quickly that it sounds shorter, as though she's given herself a nickname solely for the purposes of the class. She's asked to repeat her name, and after a third time, she announces each syllable, and they merge into two beautiful words, Maricel. Salt Mary, and Solitary Mary. You're tempted to add pray for us, and I do, under my breath. I wish I could sing to introduce myself. Perhaps everyone would be listening too hard to look at me. I would sing Frère Timony. It's a song my father, a fisherman, used to sing whenever he thought a storm was coming. I'd begin by asking everyone to pretend they were rowing with me, and I'd sing, Frère Timony, row well, my friend. Can't you see we're in trouble? Frère Timony, the wind's blowing hard, and we must make it back to land. This is not the first time I've called on Brother Timony. At least it's not the first time I've tried. I asked my father once, who was Brother Timony? He didn't know. Maybe a fisherman who died at sea. Most of the songs my father knew were about people who died at sea. When I stand to speak, the teacher decides to turn my introduction into an inquisition. And what do you do? I do nothing, I want to say. Not yet. I've been expelled from my country. That's why I'm in this class at 22 years old. Once we're all done, the teacher introduces herself saying, I'm June. You can call me June. If you pay attention and study hard, the test will be a piece of cake and you'll be a high school graduate in no time. She looks young and beefy and flat-chested and sits on the desk with her bare cream legs dangling in front of us. She doesn't know what an enormous vow she's just made. A diploma in no time? It's like those lawyers who promise green cards in just a few weeks. Rezia nicknames her Flat Titty when she notices how tiny her breasts look in her strapless sundress. Maricel is Mother Mary, and I'm the baby funeral singer. I'm one of the few professional funeral singers of my generation. At least I was. Week 2. When I was a girl in Leogane, some days my mother and I would play telephone. We'd tie 2 empty condensed milk cans to the hands of a long rope and sing to one another from far away. During carnival, we'd use our telephone rope for a maypole dance. We'd skip around each other and duck under the ropes, taking turns at being the maypole and the dancer. We always thought, or my mother always thought, that we were weaving the wind, plaiting it into a braid as thick as the rainbows that were sometimes above our heads. Week 3. Blue is the only color I was able to see when I was at sea with my father. For a while we forgot there were other colors. Oh, I remembered yellow. Yellow like the sun almost going down. Yellow as in sunflowers and marigolds, Rezia says. Marigolds, the flower of 1,000 lives, Maricel adds. Yellow, like my boyfriend, Rezia says, the man of 1,000 lies. The teacher shows us a picture of a painting full of sunflowers and says, look how there are no dead spots in this painting. Life is full of dead spots. I used to wear only new black dresses so I could blend in at the funerals where I sing. Now I wear used clothes, Kennedys, and rainbow colors and a red headband around my head to brighten my dead spots. Week 3. It was Rezia's idea that she, Maricel, and I go to a restaurant after class. We didn't always understand what was going on in the classroom, and being the only Haitians, we thought that we might be able to explain certain lessons to one another. Like, for example, the grammatical rules for present perfect, which at first I thought meant perfect gifts. I was the one who started it one night over a bottle of urine-colored rum from Rezia's pantry. I used to play telephone with my mother, I said. I forgot all colors except blue when I went fishing with my father. I was asked to sing at the National Palace, you know. I thought that exposing a few details of my life would inspire them to do the same, and slowly we would parcel out our sorrows, each walking out with fewer than we had carried in. Week 5. Before my father was arrested, the President of the Republic would drive through my town on New Year's Eve and throw money from the window of his big shiny black car. Sun rays would wrap themselves around the brand new coins, making them glow like glass. Whenever we heard that the President was coming, we'd clean our entire house and my father would stay home from the sea just in case the President chose to get out of the car and walk into our house to offer us something extra, a bag of rice, a pound of beans, a gallon of corn oil, a promise of future entrance to the medical school or the agricultural school in Damien, something that would have bought our loyalty forever, as if this sack of beans, this pound of rice, this gallon of cooking oil were the gold, silver, and bronze medal in the Olympics of poverty. Week 6. 2 trees 10 feet apart. The teacher writes this on the board, turning around to look at our very baffled faces. 2 trees 10 feet apart. Taller tree 50 feet tall, cast a 20-foot shadow. Shorter tree cast a 15-foot shadow. The sun is shining on each tree from the same angle. How tall is the shorter tree? It sounds like a riddle that would take a lifetime to solve. We have too much on our minds to unravel these types of things. We're not God, Rizia says. Who are we to know how tall a tree should be? Week 7. Tonight we cook an entire meal together. Maricel fries the plantains and ends up with a burn on the knuckle of her middle finger. Rizia makes the meat. I cook the rice with pigeon peas. We talk about what brought us here. Maricel left because her husband, a painter, had painted an unflattering portrait of the president, which was displayed in a gallery show. He was shot leaving the show. I was asked to leave because I wouldn't accept an invitation to sing at the National Palace. But I also left because long ago my father had disappeared. He'd had a fish stall at the market, and one day someone came to take it over and took my father away. When my father returned, he didn't have a tooth left in his mouth. In just one night, they had turned him into an old, ugly man. The next night, he took his boat out to sea, and with a mouthful of blood, he vanished forever. I remember the exact moment I learned about my father's disappearance. I was lying in bed when I felt the thin cotton sheet covering my body rise. My mother hadn't brought any light in the room, but I could see her clearly, a splinter of moonlight reflected in the tears falling down her face. Your papa is across the waters, Lord Baudelot, she had whispered. And in my head had sprouted images of my father lost at sea, rowing further and further away until he became as small as a leaf bobbing on the crest of the most distant wave. This is when I began to sing, so my father could hear me singing from the crest of that wave. This is Rezia's story. When she was a girl, her parents couldn't afford to keep her, so they sent her to live with an aunt who ran a brothel. They lived in 3 rooms behind the brothel, and that's where Rezia spent most of her time. One night when she was sleeping, a man walked in and she dug herself into the bed, but it did no good, so she passed out. I can always make myself faint when I'm afraid, Rezia says, feigning the smoke from the pots away from her face. When I woke up in the morning, my panties were gone. My aunt and I never spoke about it, but on her deathbed, she asked for my forgiveness. She said this man had threatened to put her in prison if she didn't let him have me that night. Week 8. Maricel brings in newspapers that we scour for news from home. She reads one report about a group of armed exiles, a New York-based militia planning an invasion, another about a radio reporter in Port-au-Prince being arrested and taken to the Caserne des Salines barracks for questioning. Maricel reads all this to us in a deep, well-paced voice that sounds like it should be on the radio. When she comes across a name she recognizes, she puts the newspaper down, closes her eyes, and wipes her lipstick off with the back of her hand. I went to school with his brother, she says. His father and mine were friends. Week 9. We fail our practice test, except Rezia, who gets 70%, enough to pass. It's not normal, I complained. We studied just as much as you did. Listen to her. Listen to the baby funeral singer, Maricel says. You have so much time to redo all these things, retake these tests, reshape your whole life. Week 10. We drink too much and stay too long at the restaurant. Maricel and I have grown used to the idea that we may never get diplomas out of the class. Maricel uncorks her second Pinot Noir of the evening, and Rizia and I stick to the rum. We like the fiery, bitter taste and the way it makes us foggy right away. I know I'm ruining my voice, but I don't care. The people inside the little paintings on the walls are beginning to sway back and forth for the first time. Or is it my head that's dancing? They walk past the borders and merge with our shadows on the wall. Let's talk about something cheerful, Rizia says. Her voice is slurred and she sounds sleepy. She's the most drunk of the three of us, consuming more spirits in celebration for passing yet another practice test that Maricel and I have failed. How does a person become a funeral singer anyway? Maricel asks. She throws her hands across my shoulders and cigarette ashes rain on my orange Salvation Army dress. Well, the first time I ever sang in public was at my father's memorial mass. I sang Fratimini, a song whose cadence rises and falls like the waves of the ocean. I sang it through my tears, and later people would tell me that my sobs reminded them of the incoming tide. From that moment on, I became a funeral singer. Every time there was a funeral in Leogane, I was asked to sing. I would sing my father's fishing songs and sometimes improvise my own, right there, next to the coffin, in front of the family, at the funeral home or at the church. At other times, I would sing Ave Maria or Amazing Grace if the family requested them, but I was always appreciated and well compensated. Tell me something cheerful, Rizia objects with a mouthful of rice. Enough already about funerals, enough. Well, Jackie Kennedy came to Haiti last year. Maricel perks up. Who's she? Rizia picks up the piece of glass and tosses it behind her. The wife of President Kennedy, Maricel explains. The President Kennedy that all the used clothes in Port-au-Prince are named after. Oh, Rizia says, now taking swigs directly from her rum bottle. He was so handsome. She was pretty too, Maricel says. She spoke French. She lost her husband and 2 babies, yet she remained so beautiful. She made sadness beautiful. Maricel proudly describes her encounter with Jackie Kennedy. Jackie Kennedy's first husband, the president whom all the used clothes in Port-au-Prince are named after, had been dead for more than a decade when she came to Haiti. Her new husband was a Greek billionaire who'd had some business with our president. Maricel's first sighting of Jackie Kennedy was on the pier of the Port-au-Prince harbor when Jackie Kennedy walked off an enormous yacht wearing pink Bermuda shorts, a white t-shirt, a massive straw hat, and wide-rimmed sunglasses to guard her face. The wind almost blew her hat away, almost blew her away, Maricel recalled, but she held herself up and disembarked. My husband went to the pier to paint her portrait, Maricel says. He asked her what she wanted in the painting, and she said in that whispery baby voice that she wanted the harbor behind her, the cargo ships and fishing boats, and just a few Haitian faces on the pier. So my husband painted her on the pier and put me in the background. So if you ever come across that painting, somewhere between the Port-au-Prince harbor and Jackie Kennedy, you will see Maricel. Week 11. My mother used to say that we will all have 3 deaths. The one when our breath leaves our bodies to rejoin the air, the one when we are put back in the earth, and the one that will erase us completely when no one remembers us at all. I sometimes hear a dog bark and I'm startled that it sounds exactly like the dogs that roamed around me that night as I sat on the beach watching my father's fishing boat being hauled ashore without him in it. My father used to love cockfights. He enjoyed the way the men would gather in a circle and pass a bottle of rum from hand to hand as they watched. This showed that animals are much smarter than man, he used to say, the way so many of us would congregate to watch 2 small birds. Week 12. When I was a girl, I had a small notebook made of a few folded sheets held together by my mother's embroidering thread. There I sketched some figures which were drawn so close together that they looked like they were fighting one another on the page. My mother was the one who first thought they were fighting. She also thought they were frightening, so she made me a rag doll because she believed I was seeing these little shadows at night and was terrified of them. Night after night, I clung to this rag doll whose crooked eyes my mother has drawn over the white cloth with a piece of charcoal. After my father was gone, I twisted the doll's neck night after night, and during the day I crowded the pages in my notebook with more tiny faces to keep me company in case my mother also disappeared. Week 13. Even though I've sung at a lot of funerals, I'm not necessarily a religious person, but I agree to Rezia's idea to light candles so we can pass the test. Maricel says that we should pray to St. Jude, the patron of lost causes. We add in there a prayer too for our country. It's not a lost cause yet, Maricel says, because it made us. To that we toast, forsaking our rum for Maricel's Pinot Noir. It feels like I'm drinking blood, not the symbolic blood of the sacraments, but real blood, velvet blood, my own blood. I give them as keepsakes a few swatches of my mother's embroidery, threads of red clouds, omens for good luck. Then Rezia asks me, "Why didn't you go when you asked to sing at the National Palace?" Ordered, I correct her. I was ordered to go sing there. "Well, why didn't you go? If you had gone, maybe you'd still be home now." I'd made a choice long ago that I'd rather stop singing altogether than sing for the type of people who had killed my father. Isn't it amazing, Rezia says? Jackie Kennedy can go to Haiti anytime she wants, but we can't. Week 14, the final week. We won't know for some time if we pass the test, yet Rezia is still shaking with anxiety when we sit down, each of us with a bowl of leftover soup from the day's menu. Maricel is wearing a set of gold bangles that when she moves her arms sound like the type of gourd rattles that you might put on a child's grave. I finally unpacked my suitcases, she says, to celebrate. She's gotten a job at a gallery not far from Rezia's restaurant and will be selling paintings, some of them her husband's. We celebrate with her by holding hands and twisting our way through the narrow spaces between the tables. "And you, Freda, what are you going to do now?" And out of breath, Maricel asks me. "I'm going back," I say, sinking into a chair. "I'm going to join a militia, and I'm going back to fight." Both Maricel and Rezia laugh so loud that it's all I can hear for some time. Not the fan twirling overhead or the trickle of rum from bottle to glass. "Look, it's the 70s, I protest. Look at Fidel Castro. He had women with him." They're still laughing, but also drinking, laughing and drinking, drinking and laughing. "It's not that." Maricel is doubled over, clinging to her belly chortling. "It's just that if you join a militia, we'll soon be reading about you. If you join a militia, you'll die," Rezia adds. "Then, who will sing at your funeral?" The room is quiet now except for the fan spinning overhead and a car horn blaring outside. Maricel throws her head back, empties her entire glass in her mouth, and then flings it across the room. We watch it fly, then land on the wall, breaking into a torrent of little pieces. "Hey," Rezia shuffles over with a broom to pick up the shards. "Don't wreck my place. If I didn't have this place, I'd be as crazy as the two of you." "We're not crazy." Maricel tries to get up, but her knees buckle under her, and she falls back in her chair. "Freda, why don't you do it now?" Maricel says. "Why don't you sing your own funeral song?" "We'll help you," Rezia chimes in from where she's sweeping up glass across the room. I clear my throat to show them that I can do it. I'm willing to do it. Sing my own funeral song. Why not? And that's how I began my final performance as a funeral singer or any kind of singer at all. I sing Fretimony, Brother Timony. Brother Timony, we row on without you, but I know we'll meet again. Kezia and Marisol catch on quickly and join in. We sing and sing until our voices grow hoarse, sometimes making Brother Timony a sister. When we've exhausted poor Timony, we move on to a few more songs, happier songs. And for the rest of the night, we raise our glasses, broken and unbroken alike, to the terrible days behind us and the uncertain ones ahead. Thank you.
Question. Just wondering if you find any inspiration for books that you're thinking of or writing that you're thinking of in folkways or anything in the United States?
That's an interesting question. I mean, I do, but I'm not in the same way. I think perhaps I have less familiarity, but there are a lot of things that are weaved in, and I think also when you talk about the United States, there are so many other inspirations, you know, that are weaved into that experience too. For example, in this story, you know, marigold's the flower of a thousand lives. I heard about that at a celebration on the Day of the Dead, for example. So things, I think it's complex to the folkways of the United States. It depends on region, different experiences. I mean, there are certain things that inspire me that are already there, that people may not recognize as that, but there's certainly the folkways of Brooklyn and some of and many of my stories as well.
Hi, first of all, thank you very much for being here. It's an honor to hear you speak. I was wondering if you could tell us about your take on the recent coup and the current political situation in Haiti right now.
Well, thank you. My take, I mean, it's tied in many ways to what I said in the beginning. It's I think recent political events in some ways are part of this cycle that this year, you know, gives us an opportunity to reflect on very seriously on how we move on for the next 200 years. I mean, this very, you know, today actually, I think it was Tuesday, for example, there were some new forces coming in, and the U.S. forces had to leave, but because of the flood, they will remain until the end of the month. So this is, for example, the third time in the last 100 years that the United States has interfered militarily, has in Haiti. So I think this year, especially the symbolism of this year, gives us an opportunity to reflect on all that, both as, you know, Haitians in Haiti and the diaspora, to really think about how we're going to move, how we're going to contribute to the future of this country, and really to take into hand and how different people from different sectors will move together in this country. So now that, you know, what's happened has happened, I definitely have to be watchful and see that there are true. There's a true process towards elections, and to be watchful of people who are now, certain people who are in hiding, and other people who are in danger. To not to lose track, because sometimes, you know, people think it's over if it's not on CNN, but I think there's a real struggle going on for this country's future. Whatever side people are on, it is there's a lot at stake now in terms of where we go from now, and all sectors of this country now has to contribute to that.
I wonder if you could say a little bit about what led you to write The Dewbreaker.
Well, I started with one story. The Dewbreaker really started with the first story, which is a story in the book called The Book of the Dead. And I was on a trip with my mother in Florida. She came, I was teaching at UM, and we went to Lakeland, Florida. And my mother had never been to Lakeland, Florida. I'd never been to Lakeland, Florida. We were staying sort of on a Holiday Inn by the side of the road, and I woke up, we were in the same room, I woke up and she was gone. And I had this extraordinary sense of panic, that my mother was going to be lost in Lakeland, Florida, of all places, and I had lost her. So I was going around with this, my mother is gone, like this sentence in my head, my mother is gone. And it turned out that she had gone for a very long walk. When that was done, I started, I had this sentence, my mother is gone, and started writing this story. And then at some point the mother became a father who's on this trip with his daughter and unraveled, and then he tells the secret. But at the core of the story was that this moment of panic. And so then the first line in the story is my father is gone, and the story is about this father who's on the trip and with his daughter, and then he confesses his past. And from that, then I was curious what the past was, so then I wrote another story. So the book sort of unraveled that way with the structure that it has, all these different pieces. But I'd always wanted to write a story set in the time that I lived last continuously in Haiti, which was this time from the time I was born, 1969 to 1981. So I wanted to write a story set in that time, and because a big part of that was the dictatorship, and I wasn't sure how to approach it. And for a while I was working on a story about, I was thinking of writing a novel about a woman named Madame Max, who was the female head of one of the sort of higher people in the Tonton Macoutes. She was a big leader in there. But because also she was alive, I don't know if she's still alive, but she was alive, and I couldn't get into it that way. And so at some point then I started writing this one story that led to that. But it was also at least what kept this part of it kept the story going, in that in Brooklyn we had Emmanuel Constant, who was the head of FRAP, an organization in Haiti that's responsible in the 1990s for the murder of something like 5,000 people. And he's living in the United States because at some point he went on 60 Minutes and said himself that he had worked for the CIA and that it was their idea to start this organization. So he actually is protected here by the U.S. government, and they were when he just moved to New York, people would always say that they had seen him hear all these sightings. So his presence was also one of the things that fed the story. And there's a kind of a similar experience in one of the stories in the book where someone thinks they see someone like him, or so things like that when I would put the story down. Or there was a man in Florida who was someone who had been part of a massacre that they were trying to deport, and at some point he won the lottery, and so his story sort of came out. And definitely there were quite a few people like this also in Florida. So when I would hear about these stories, they would kind of feed the continuation of the story.